every woman's experience of childbirth is unique, but most women will experience pain.
But could 39-year-old Lovisa Dahl have found the key to relieving the pain without medication?
Lovisa believes having an orgasm during labour is the answer to a better birth, and she's talking from experience. She's here now to tell us more alongside midwife Marley Hall. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Very nice to meet you. Tell me, first of all, where this idea came from.
With orgasmic childbirth. You know, when I was pregnant with my first, I have 3 children, and then somebody recommended me the documentary Orgasmic Birth by Deborah Pascali-Bonaro. So I watched it with being super intrigued, super fascinated by this idea, seeing women have actually orgasm during birth. But I didn't think that would be possible for me. Because actually at the moment I had been in abusive relationships. I was still struggling with my sexuality, and kind of like I had met my husband and I was, you know, healing a lot. Yeah. But it was still, I was still sometimes struggling to orgasm in intercourse, and, you know, it was, so I didn't really think I could have that, but maybe somebody else. And I didn't. In my first birth, I didn't. I had a very beautiful home birth, 22 hours, so it was also challenging.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely, but it was very beautiful. I wouldn't call it orgasmic.
No.
Right.
So your first birth, even though you knew of the idea, you didn't feel quite ready. You didn't think that was going to happen. What about your second birth?
Well, my second birth, then I thought, well, what if? Yeah. What if? So I started to investigate, like, how could I prepare myself? And I dove into certain topics. So I dove into embodiment, feminine embodiment, pleasure, relaxation, visualization, and surrender. So these were the 5 tools that I kind of used to make myself ready, to prepare myself.
And what happened during that second birth? Did you manage to do it?
I had like the most ecstatic birth. It was like, it's actually like hard to put words on it, but it felt like maybe like a cosmic orgasm or an energy orgasm, or like this totally ecstatic state where you're just one with everything, like a oneness experience.
But it wasn't strictly...
But it was no physical orgasm. No.
And this was all done without any sort of medication. You were doing it purely through stimulation and pleasure and...
Yeah, and in this particular, the second birth, I didn't use any like stimulation of intimate parts in this one. Because actually my daughter was present. She was 3 at the moment.
Right.
So she was present together with my mother-in-law.
Right.
So,
and you don't necessarily want to be doing that in front of your mother-in-law?
Exactly. That could be a little bit intimidating, but she is lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The word.
But then the third time lucky, essentially, you had another child, and then this was your plan this time.
Yeah, and this time I thought, okay, I'm going to go all into the sexual aspect of it. So I was preparing more with sexual pleasure. But in the second birth, I was preparing more with sensual pleasure, like scents and
candles. Yeah.
But this time, I was preparing more with sexual pleasure.
And that involved your husband as well during the birth?
Yes, exactly. So he was doing some nipple stimulation, and I was stimulating my intimate parts, and it was and that was, we had spoken about that, of course, on beforehand as well. So I was basically using what science tells us, that if you focus on pleasurable sensations, you can reduce the perception of pain, because the focus of the brain shifts.
So because of the pleasure and the experience of that, you didn't notice that actually this was really painful?
Yeah, you know, actually, like, I also have rephrased the word pain.
Right.
Because, and this is not to take away any woman's experience of labor as painful, but I think we have a lot to gain from looking at those sensations as intense sensations instead.
Marley, you're a midwife, so you deliver children all the time. Have you ever had anybody have an orgasm at birth?
not that they've told me about
Right, OK.
at the time. So I've never actually witnessed anybody experience an orgasm whilst I'm helping them have their baby.
Sure.
In the 16 years that I've been a midwife, I have had one or two mention it afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
When I visited them at home, perhaps, but they've been with somebody else and another midwife through their labour. But I think it's something that probably most people wouldn't disclose because there might be some shame around it, I guess. Interestingly enough, I actually did ask this morning on social media, and the response I had was from a midwife who said that she had experienced it herself.
Goodness me.
So I think when you ask the question, more and more people are going to come forward and say, oh, yeah, that happened to me.
So what about the process, then? As a midwife, is it something that you could advocate? What do you make of what Lovisa is saying?
Well, at the end of the day, what she's explaining is the increase in oxytocin.
Yes,
and that can help to reduce the perception of pain for some people. And more oxytocin actually helps with contractions as well. So a lot of NHS trusts, in their guidelines or their information for, let's say, induction of labour, for example, they might say, you know, to kind of help to get things going a little bit, is to have sex ultimately.
Yes.
To help, you know, with those hormones. They don't specifically talk about orgasmic birth, but you know, you can kind of see what they're saying,
Where it comes
where it's coming
from,
from, and along those lines, because we know that oxytocin helps the whole process, ultimately.
And surely to shift a woman's perception as well away from pain, because I think that that's such an important thing. If you go into something frightened, you're going to be frightened.
Yes, and you will tense, right?
Yeah.
So you will tense. And often also, when we think about pain, we relate it to something that is bad. But the sensations of birth, or the birth waves of the contractions, they are not bad. They are actually helping you getting closer to your baby. So it's a totally different type of sensation, actually.
There will be lots of people watching that may think it's a bit distasteful and may think it's inappropriate to be sort of behaving like this when you're having birth, giving birth.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of... it's a taboo topic. I really think that we need to remember that birth is part of the female sexuality. Because in the same way as menstruation is, or menopause, giving birth is sexual. We give birth with our sexual organ. And yes, it can be controversial to say you can use, you can stimulate the intimate parts in labor, but really the intimate parts are really already being stimulated. Because
it's been a very positive experience for you, hasn't it?
It's so interesting to talk to them both. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.